The moon hangs swollen and heavy in the October sky, its pale light filtering through a veil of clouds that drift like lost souls across the darkness. Street lamps cast pools of amber that barely penetrate the gloom, their light catching on the moisture in the air. Not quite rain, but a fine mist that clings to everything it touches. Graham Calder walks alone, his footsteps silent despite the Italian leather shoes that cost more than most mortals earn in a month. He feels the night against his skin, cool but not unpleasant, like the touch of an old lover who knows his body too well. The scent of approaching winter mingles with exhaust fumes, discarded food, and the thousand other odors that humans have learned to ignore, but that he can parse as easily as reading a book. He pauses at the corner, nostrils flaring slightly. Beneath the urban potpourri, he detects something sweeter, the distinctive copper penny tang of fresh blood. Not spilled, but flowing beneath skin, pulsing with life. A young woman hurries past, clutching her coat tightly around her throat. Graham's pupils dilate imperceptibly, tracking her movement with predatory precision. His tongue presses against the roof of his mouth, where his extended canines have begun to throb. 3 centuries of restraint settle over him like a familiar weight. Graham exhales slowly, tasting her scent one last time before deliberately turning away. The hunger never truly fades, not completely, but he has mastered it in ways that younger vampires cannot comprehend. Power isn't about surrender to one's nature. It's about control. His phone vibrates in his pocket. Graham withdraws it, the blue light illuminating the sharp angles of his face. Handsome in a severe way, with eyes that have witnessed the rise and fall of nations. "Yes?" he answers, voice low and modulated. "The council is waiting, my lord." Tobias Red's voice carries the faintest trace of an accent from a country that no longer exists. "I'm aware of the time." Graham feels a flicker of irritation. 300 years old, and still Tobias treats him like a forgetful child. "I'll be there shortly." He ends the call and slips the phone back into his pocket. The council meeting, another tedious gathering of immortals arguing over territory and hunting rights, as if they were still medieval barons squabbling over peasants. Graham has ruled them for nearly a century now, maintaining the delicate balance between their nature and the need for secrecy in the modern world. A sound catches his attention, soft sobbing from the storefront to his right. Graham turns, his enhanced vision easily penetrating the darkened interior of the bakery. A woman stands behind the counter, shoulders slumped, face buried in her hands. Before her sits a birthday cake, its pink frosting cheerful beneath the emergency lights. "Happy 8th birthday, Mara," written in careful cursive across the top. Graham hesitates, then moves closer to the window. The woman, early 30s, auburn hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, wipes her eyes with the back of her hand, leaving a streak of flour across her cheek. She reaches for her phone, dials, waits. "Hi, Mrs. March. It's Evelyn Brooks again." Her voice carries through the glass, audible only to Graham's supernatural hearing. "I'm so sorry to bother you, but is there any chance you could keep Mara a bit longer? The customer who ordered the specialty cake never showed, and I need to finish another order before I can close up." A pause. "Yes, I know it's her birthday. I promised I'd be home hours ago, but..." Another pause. "I understand. Thank you anyway." She hangs up, staring at the abandoned birthday cake. The defeat in her posture stirs something in Graham, an echo of emotion he thought long buried beneath years of calculated indifference. He watches as Evelyn Brooks begins to clean up, moving with the mechanical precision of someone pushing through exhaustion. The cake sits untouched, a monument to disappointment. Graham's fingers press against the cold glass, leaving no prints, no evidence of his presence. The council can wait. Auntie Bakery. Moments later, the bell above the door chimes softly as Graham enters. The bakery smells of vanilla, sugar, and yeast, comforting scents that remind him of a time when food was more than just a pretense. Beneath these pleasant aromas, he detects the salt of dried tears and the subtle chemical signature of human distress. Evelyn looks up, startled. "I'm sorry, we're closed." The sign says open until 8. Graham's voice is gentle, carefully modulated to put humans at ease. "Yes, but I was just about to." She glances at the clock, sighs. "What can I help you with?" Graham approaches the counter, noting the dark circles beneath her eyes, the slight tremor in her hands that speaks of too much coffee and too little rest. Her heartbeat quickens as he draws near, the instinctive, unconscious response of prey to predator, though she would never recognize it as such. "I need a cake," he says simply. Evelyn gestures to the display case, nearly empty at this late hour. "I have a few slices left or some cupcakes." Actually, Graham's eyes drift to the pink birthday cake. "That one looks perfect." She follows his gaze, confusion flickering across her features. That was a special order. It's not for sale." "The customer isn't coming." It's not a question. Evelyn's shoulders tense. "How did you—" "Lucky guess." Graham offers a smile that doesn't reach his eyes. "People can be disappointing." "Yes," she agrees quietly. "They can." The silence stretches between them, filled with the soft hum of the refrigeration units and the distant sounds of traffic outside. Graham feels the weight of her assessment, the wariness, the calculation of risk versus reward. He knows what she sees: a wealthy man in an expensive suit, out of place in this modest neighborhood bakery. What she doesn't see are the centuries behind his eyes, or the blood that has passed his lips. "I'll pay double," he says finally. "Triple if necessary." Evelyn's eyebrows rise. "For a child's birthday cake? With another child's name on it?" "The name isn't a problem." Graham reaches into his pocket, withdraws a money clip thick with $100 bills. And yes, it's important. He watches her internal struggle, pride warring with practicality. The rent is due soon. He can see it in the worry lines around her mouth. The canceled order represents hours of work and materials she can't afford to lose. "It's for your daughter," Graham says softly, the lie slipping easily from his tongue. "Mara, isn't it? What a lovely name." Evelyn's face pales. "How do you know my daughter's name?" "A mistake." Graham curses himself internally. Centuries of careful manipulation, and he's growing careless over a birthday cake. "It's written on the cake." He recovers smoothly. "I assumed it was the customer's child, but what a coincidence. Same age as my niece." Another lie, built upon the first. "Her party is tomorrow. The bakery I ordered from had a fire last night, and I've been desperate to find a replacement." The tension in Evelyn's shoulders eases slightly, though suspicion still lingers in her eyes. "Your niece is turning 8? "Yes." Graham places several $100 bills on the counter. "This should cover it. Keep the change. Consider it a thank you for saving me from a very disappointed little girl." Evelyn stares at the money, then back at Graham. He can hear her heartbeat steadying, the rhythm of someone making a difficult decision. "Let me box it up for you," she says finally, reaching for the cake. Graham watches her careful movements as she transfers the cake to a cardboard box, securing it with twine. Her fingers are deft despite their tiredness, speaking of years of practice. A gold band glints on her left hand, worn but well-maintained. "Your husband doesn't mind you working such long hours?" Graham asks, the question slipping out before he can stop himself. Evelyn's hands still momentarily. "My husband died 3 years ago. Army. Afghanistan. I'm sorry." And strangely, Graham means it. She shrugs, a gesture meant to appear casual but betraying the weight she carries. "We manage. Mara and I." Graham accepts the boxed cake, their fingers brushing briefly in the exchange. Evelyn's skin is warm against his perpetual coolness. She notices, glancing up at him with renewed curiosity. "Poor circulation," he explains, another practiced lie. "You should get that checked," she says, professional concern momentarily overriding her wariness. "Could be anemia." A laugh nearly escapes him at the irony. "I'll look into it." As he turns to leave, cake in hand, Evelyn calls after him. "Wait. What name should I write on the receipt? For your records?" Graham pauses at the door, the night air seeping in around him. "Calder," he says. "Graham Calder." He steps outside before she can respond, the bell chiming a second time as the door swings closed behind him. XT City Street. Continuous. The mist has thickened, wrapping the street lamps in halos of diffused light. Graham stands motionless on the sidewalk, the cake box light in his hands. His phone vibrates again. Tobias, undoubtedly growing impatient. The council meeting started 20 minutes ago, and the Vampire King's absence will not go unnoticed or unremarked. Graham ignores it. For the first time in decades, something has pierced the careful indifference he cultivates. The woman's face, Evelyn's face, haunts him with its quiet dignity in the face of struggle. And the child, unseen but present in every worried glance at the clock, every apologetic word to the neighbor watching her. He glances back at the bakery. Through the window, he can see Evelyn counting the money he left, disbelief evident in her expression as she realizes how much it is. She looks up suddenly, as if sensing his gaze, but Graham has already stepped back into the shadows, invisible to human eyes. His first impulse is to walk away, to discard the cake and proceed to the council meeting, where matters of actual importance await his attention. The lives of mortals are brief flickers compared to his endless existence, their joys and sorrows as ephemeral as morning dew. Why should this particular mother and child matter? Yet he finds himself unable to move on. Something about the name on the cake, Mara, tugs at memories long buried. Another child, another time. A debt unpaid. Graham's jaw tightens. Sentiment is a luxury vampires cannot afford, a weakness that has destroyed many of his kind over the centuries. He has witnessed the fall of those who maintained their human attachments, who could not sever the emotional ties to the mortal world. He should know better. His phone vibrates a third time. Graham answers it with a sharp movement. "What?" The word comes out harsher than intended. "My lord." Tobias's voice is tense. "Elias Keaton has challenged your ruling on the Western Territories. He's demanding a formal hearing." Graham closes his eyes briefly. Keaton, ambitious, ruthless, and perpetually testing boundaries. A predictable move, but poorly timed. "Tell him I'll hear his petition at midnight." Graham's tone leaves no room for argument. "Not before. But the council can proceed without me for another hour. I have a matter to attend to." He ends the call before Tobias can protest further. The decision crystallizes in his mind, sudden and irrevocable. Graham Calder, Vampire King, feared by immortals across 3 continents, is going to ensure that an 8-year-old human child has a proper birthday. The absurdity of it almost makes him smile. Int. Luxury apartment. Later. The penthouse apartment gleams with chrome and glass, minimalist and cold, a fitting reflection of its occupant. Graham places the cake box carefully on the kitchen counter, then moves to a panel on the wall. With practiced precision, he enters a code, revealing a hidden safe. Inside rests an assortment of objects collected over centuries: rare coins, jewelry, documents yellowed with age. His fingers hover over the items before selecting a small velvet pouch. Graham tips its contents into his palm, a delicate silver bracelet set with tiny moonstones that catch the light with an inner fire no human craftsman could achieve. Enchanted by a witch in 1743 in exchange for protection during a particularly zealous period of persecution. The magic remains potent, a simple charm of safety designed to warn the wearer of approaching danger. Too valuable for a child's birthday gift, perhaps. Yet Graham finds himself unwilling to part with anything less. He returns the bracelet to its pouch, then reaches deeper into the safe for a second item, a small music box inlaid with mother of pearl. When opened, it plays a melody no living human has heard, composed by a musician whose name has been lost to history. These treasures, along with the cake, will be delivered anonymously. A mystery benefactor, a birthday miracle. Graham has no intention of revealing himself to Evelyn Brooks or her daughter. This is not the beginning of a relationship. It is the settlement of a debt long overdue, though the recipient will never know it. He closes the safe, concealing it once more behind the innocent-looking panel. As he turns away, a flicker of movement catches his eye, a reflection in the window glass. Graham spins, fangs extending instinctively, only to find Porter Hale standing in the doorway. "Forgive the intrusion, my lord." Porter bows slightly, his eyes carefully averted from Graham's momentarily inhuman features. "Tobias sent me to remind you of the hour." Graham retracts his fangs with a conscious effort, irritation flaring at the interruption. "I'm aware of the time, Porter." "Of course." Porter's gaze drifts to the cake box on the counter, curiosity evident despite his attempt to hide it. "Shall I have your car brought around?" "Not yet." Graham moves to block Porter's view of the kitchen. "I have instructions for you first. A delivery to be made." Porter's expression remains neutral, though Graham detects the faintest hint of surprise in the quickening of his pulse. In 3 decades of service, Graham has never asked him to deliver birthday cakes. "An address in the East District," Graham continues. "The package must arrive before morning, with no indication of its source. Can you manage that?" "Certainly, my lord." Porter hesitates. "May I ask—" "No," Graham interrupts. "You may not. This matter is private." Porter nods, accepting the rebuke without comment. "I'll see it done." As Porter withdraws, Graham turns back to the window, gazing out at the city spread below him. Lights twinkle in, the darkness, each representing lives being lived, stories unfolding, all oblivious to the predators moving among them. Somewhere out there, a child named Mara will soon receive an unexpected gift from a stranger she will never meet. And Graham will return to his world of shadow politics and blood, to Elias Keaton's challenge and the endless responsibilities of maintaining order among the immortals. This momentary detour into compassion changes nothing, cannot change anything, Yet as he prepares to leave for the council meeting, Graham finds himself wondering what Mara's face will look like when she sees the cake, whether she'll wear the bracelet or wind the music box before sleep. Dangerous thoughts, leading down paths he closed centuries ago. Why this child? He murmurs to his reflection. Why now, after all this time? The glass offers no answer, reflecting only the face of a man who stopped aging at 35, whose eyes hold the weight of too many years and too many regrets. Behind him, the cake box sits on the counter, a pink and white intrusion in his monochrome existence. In the distance, church bells begin to toll the hour. Graham straightens his tie, pushes aside these uncomfortable stirrings of humanity. The vampire king has duties to attend to, but as he reaches for his coat, a memory surfaces. A child's laugh, a small hand in his, the taste of honey. The memory hits him with physical force, like a blow to the chest. Graham steadies himself against the doorframe, knuckles white. It's been over a century since he allowed himself to remember that particular taste. Not blood, but honey from a wooden spoon, offered by small fingers, his daughter's fingers. The recollection vanishes as quickly as it surfaced, leaving behind a hollow ache. Graham shakes his head, banishing ghosts. He has survived this long by compartmentalizing the past, by sealing away memories that serve no purpose but to wound. Tonight will be no different. "Sir?" Angela's voice comes through the intercom. "Your car is waiting. The council expects you within the hour." Graham straightens, adjusts his cufflinks. "Thank you, Angela. I'm on my way." He moves through his penthouse with inhuman grace, footsteps silent against marble floors. The cake box remains on the counter, its presence an accusation. Graham hesitates, then retrieves his phone, scrolling to a number he rarely calls. "Tobias," he says when his lieutenant answers. "The gifts for the Brooks child. Make sure they arrive anonymously." "Of course, sir. May I ask?" "You may not." Graham ends the call, pocketing the phone with finality. Whatever momentary weakness overcame him has passed. He is Graham Calder, vampire king of the Eastern Territories, not some sentimental mortal drowning in remembrance. The elevator descends, numbers ticking backward like years falling away. In the underground garage, his driver stands beside the black Bentley, face impassive. Graham slides into the leather back seat, inhaling the scent of polish and power. "The council chambers, sir?" "Yes." As the car pulls away, Graham watches the city transform through tinted windows. Downtown skyscrapers give way to older neighborhoods, where Victorian homes stand shoulder to shoulder with modern apartments. Somewhere in this maze of streets, a little girl named Mara Brooks is celebrating her birthday, unaware of the immortal eyes that have turned in her direction. The council chambers occupy the entire top floor of a building that appears, from the outside, to be nothing more than an investment firm. Graham strides through security, past guards who bow their heads in deference. The elevator requires his palm print, his retinal scan, and finally, a drop of his blood. The most secure identification of all. The doors open to reveal a circular room dominated by a massive table of polished obsidian. 7 chairs surround it, though only 5 are currently occupied. Elias Keaton sits directly opposite the empty chair reserved for Graham, his pale fingers steepled beneath his chin. The 4 other council members, representatives from the major vampire lineages, watch Graham's entrance with varying degrees of interest. "How good of you to join us, Your Majesty," Elias says, the honorific dripping with disdain. "We were beginning to wonder if matters of state had become secondary to your personal interests. Graham takes his seat without hurry, letting the silence stretch until the air crackles with tension. The council begins when I arrive, Elias, not a moment before. He surveys the others. Marguerite Devereux, elegant in crimson silk. Victor Kozlov, broad-shouldered and grim. Isabel Chen, whose youthful appearance belies her 5 centuries of existence. And Darius Wright, the youngest at merely 200 years, still uncomfortable in these proceedings. We have matters to discuss, Graham continues, beginning with the territorial dispute in the southern quarter. Elias leans forward, teeth gleaming in the low light. Before we address such trivial concerns, perhaps you might explain your recent activities in the mortal sector? Specifically, your interest in a certain human family? The room temperature seems to drop. Graham keeps his expression neutral, though he feels a flicker of unease. How much does Elias know? I wasn't aware the council concerned itself with my private affairs, Graham replies coolly. When the king develops an attachment to mortals, it becomes everyone's concern. Elias slides a folder across the table. The Brooks family. Evelyn, 34, widow. Daughter Mara, turning 8 today. You've been watching them for months. Graham doesn't touch the folder. You've been having me followed. I've been protecting our interests, Elias counters. These humans, what are they to you? The woman bears a striking resemblance to... Enough! Graham's voice doesn't rise, but the single word silences the room. Even the air seems to still. My actions serve the greater interests of our kind, whether you understand them or not. Marguerite clears her throat, her French accent pronounced in the tense atmosphere. Perhaps we should return to the agenda. The territorial dispute. No, Elias interrupts. I want to know why our king, who has maintained emotional distance from humans for centuries, suddenly sends birthday gifts to a mortal child. Why he stands outside their apartment building in the rain. Why he diverts resources to ensure their financial security. Graham's fingers tighten imperceptibly on the armrests of his chair. You overstep, Elias. Do I? Or do you? Elias's eyes gleam with malice. The last time you became involved with mortals, it ended rather messily for all concerned. Shall I remind the Council of London, 1888? The mention of that year sends a cold spike through Graham's chest. He rises slowly, power emanating from him in almost visible waves. Council is adjourned for tonight. We've barely begun, Victor protests. I said adjourned. Graham's gaze never leaves Elias. Except for Lord Keaton, he and I have private matters to discuss. The other council members exchange glances before filing out silently. When the doors close, leaving Graham alone with Elias, the tension thickens to something almost solid. You play a dangerous game, Graham says softly. Elias smiles, unperturbed. I merely seek to understand my king's motivations. These humans, they're connected to your past, aren't they? To the family you lost before your turning? Graham moves with preternatural speed, suddenly looming over Elias, one hand gripping the back of the vampire's chair. My past is not your concern. My present actions are not your concern. What should concern you, Elias, is that you've deployed surveillance against your king, an act of treason. Treason? Elias laughs, though his eyes betray wariness. I acted to protect our secrecy, our way of life. This woman, Evelyn Brooks, she's descended from your human bloodline, isn't she? A distant granddaughter, perhaps? And the child, if you approach them, If you so much as breathe in their direction, Graham whispers, I will end your existence so thoroughly that even the memory of you will vanish from our histories. Elias's smile falters. Such passion for mere mortals. It makes one wonder where your true loyalties lie. Graham straightens, adjusts his cuffs. My loyalty has always been to our survival. That hasn't changed. Then prove it, Elias challenges. The community center in their neighborhood hosts a fundraiser tomorrow night. Attend. Show yourself among the humans without acknowledging these particular ones. Demonstrate that they mean nothing to you. Graham regards him coldly. You presume to test me? I offer you an opportunity to dispel my concerns. Bring Tobias as witness. Elias rises, straightening his jacket. Unless, of course, you cannot trust yourself to maintain distance. After Elias departs, Graham remains motionless in the empty council chamber, rage and something dangerously close to fear coursing through him. Elias knows, not everything, but enough to pose a threat. And tomorrow night, Evelyn and Mara will be in the same room with two ancient predators, one of whom would not hesitate to use them as leverage. Graham retrieves his phone, dials. Tobias, we have a situation. The community center buzzes with activity, streamers and balloons transforming the utilitarian space into something festive. Tables laden with baked goods and handicrafts line the walls, while children dart between clusters of chatting adults. A hand-painted banner proclaims Spring Fundraiser in cheerful blue letters. Graham stands just inside the entrance, immaculate in a charcoal suit that costs more than most attendees earn in months. Beside him, Tobias surveys the crowd with practiced indifference. She's by the punch bowl, Tobias murmurs. Blue dress. The child is with the group near the stage. Graham doesn't need the direction. He's already located Evelyn, his heightened senses picking her out from the crowd by the particular rhythm of her heartbeat. She looks tired but lovely, her dark hair pulled back in a simple knot. Laughing at something an older woman, Mrs. March, the neighbor, has said. And there, across the room, Mara sits cross-legged on the floor with other children, watching a magician pull colored scarves from his sleeve. The bracelet Graham sent glints on her small wrist. Elias isn't here yet, Tobias observes. He will be. Graham moves deeper into the room, nodding politely when humans glance his way. They don't know what he is, but they sense something, power, danger, otherness, that both attracts and warns. A woman in a floral dress approaches, clipboard in hand. Welcome to our fundraiser. Are you new to the neighborhood? I'm Alana Pierce, Community Outreach Coordinator. Graham Calder, he replies, shaking her hand briefly. My company is considering a donation to your after-school programs. Alana's eyes widen. Calder Industries? Oh, we're so honored. Let me introduce you to some of our board members. Graham allows himself to be led through the crowd, playing the role of philanthropist with practiced ease. All the while, his awareness remains fixed on Evelyn and Mara, tracking their movements through the room. Twice he nearly crosses paths with Evelyn, and twice he adjusts his trajectory to maintain distance, until he can't. The magician finishes his act to enthusiastic applause. Children scatter, Mara among them, darting through the crowd. Graham sees what's about to happen a second before it occurs. Mara, running backward, collides with his legs. Oops, sorry, mister. She looks up, way up, her small face flushed with excitement. Graham freezes. This close, the resemblance is unmistakable. The same determined chin, the same arch of eyebrows that his own daughter had possessed centuries ago. But this child's eyes are brown, not blue, and her hair falls in dark waves instead of golden curls. "Quite all right," he manages, voice carefully controlled. Mara doesn't move away. Instead, she tilts her head, studying him with curious intensity. "I know you." Graham's centuries of composure nearly shatter. "I don't think so." "Yes." Her small finger points to his face. "You were outside our building, in the rain. You looked sad." Before Graham can respond, Evelyn appears, slightly breathless. "Mara, honey, you can't just run into people and—" She stops, registering Graham's presence, her expression shifting from apologetic to something more complex. "I'm so sorry," she says, placing protective hands on Mara's shoulders. She gets excited. "No harm done." Graham inclines his head slightly. "Your daughter is observant." Evelyn's pulse quickens. He can hear it, the sudden acceleration of blood through veins. Yes, sometimes too observant for her own good. She tugs Mara gently. "Come on, sweetie, let's get some lemonade." "But Mom!" "Now please." Graham watches them retreat, Evelyn glancing back once with unmistakable wariness. She knows something, senses something, though he's certain they've never formally met. "That was unfortunate timing," Tobias murmurs, materializing at his side. "It was inevitable," Graham replies, "and Elias has just arrived." Indeed, Elias Keaton makes his entrance with calculated showmanship, pausing in the doorway to survey the room. He's dressed impeccably in a navy suit, his silver hair gleaming under the fluorescent lights. To human eyes, he appears to be a distinguished man in his 50s, wealthy and confident. Only Graham recognizes the predatory assessment in that sweeping gaze. Their eyes meet across the crowded room, and Elias smiles thinly before making his way toward Evelyn and Mara. Graham moves without conscious thought, intercepting Elias before he can reach them. "Lord Keaton, what a pleasant surprise." "Your Majesty." Elias's voice drips with false deference. "I see you're embracing your humanitarian side tonight." "As are you, apparently." "I've always had an interest in community development." Elias's gaze slides past Graham to where Evelyn stands, now deep in conversation with Alana. That must be her. The resemblance is indeed striking. "To your first wife, isn't it? Before you were turned?" Graham's fingers twitch with the urge to tear out Elias's throat. "You've made your point. You can leave now. But I've only just arrived, and I've made a substantial donation." Elias produces a check with flourish. "I believe that entitles me to mingle with the beneficiaries of my generosity." Before Graham can respond, the community center's director taps a microphone, calling for attention. "Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention for a moment. We have some very special guests tonight who have shown extraordinary generosity toward our center." The crowd quiets, turning toward the small stage. The director beams, gesturing toward Graham and Elias. "Mr. Graham Calder of Calder Industries and Mr. Elias Keaton of Keaton Investments have both made significant contributions to our programs. Would you gentlemen please join me on stage for a proper thank you?" Murmurs ripple through the crowd. Graham catches Evelyn's expression. Recognition, then confusion, then something that might be fear as she pulls Mara closer to her side. "Shall we?" Elias gestures toward the stage, triumph gleaming in his eyes. The public awaits. On stage, under harsh lights that make his skin crawl with ancient instincts, Graham shakes hands with the director, accepts a plaque of appreciation, and speaks briefly about community investment. All the while, he's acutely aware of Evelyn watching him, her heart rate elevated, her body angled protectively toward Mara. When Elias takes the microphone, his words seem innocuous to human ears, platitudes about children being the future, about the importance of safe spaces in urban environments. But Graham hears the underlying message directed at him alone. "We must protect what matters most," Elias says, his gaze finding Evelyn in the crowd. "Sometimes, the greatest act of love is keeping a safe distance from those who might be harmed by our nature." The applause that follows masks Graham's low growl of warning. As they descend from the stage, he grips Elias's arm with inhuman strength. "You've made your point. Leave them out of this." Elias extracts himself with a smile. "I haven't even begun to make my point, Your Majesty. But the night is young." The next hour passes in excruciating tension. Graham circulates through the fundraiser, playing his part while keeping Elias in his peripheral vision. The rival vampire makes no direct approach toward Evelyn or Mara, but his attention repeatedly drifts their way, a silent promise of threat. Graham is discussing donation structures with a board member when he feels it, a shift in the air, a change in the tenor of conversations around him. He turns to see Evelyn Brooks standing directly behind him, arms crossed, eyes blazing with determination. "Mr. Calder," she says, voice steady despite her racing pulse, "I think it's time we talked." The board member excuses himself, sensing the tension. Graham inclines his head slightly. "Ms. Brooks, you know my name. It's not a question. Just like you knew where we lived, just like you knew it was Mara's birthday." Graham keeps his expression neutral, though inwardly he's calculating risks, escape routes, damage control. "I'm afraid I don't." Evelyn steps closer, lowering her voice. "The music box, the bracelet, the anonymous donation that paid off our medical bills after my husband died. It was all you." Around them, the fundraiser continues, oblivious to the confrontation unfolding in their midst. Graham is acutely aware of Elias watching from across the room, satisfaction evident in his posture. "Why?" Evelyn demands. "Why us? What do you want from my daughter?" The question hits with unexpected force. Graham has faced down rival vampire lords, werewolf packs, even human witch covens. Yet this mortal woman's direct gaze makes him want to retreat. "I want nothing from her," he says finally. "Or from you." "Then explain the gifts. Explain why you've been watching our apartment. Explain." Her voice catches. "Explain why you look exactly like the man in my grandmother's locket, the one she said was our ancestor from the 1800s. Graham's world narrows to this single moment, this impossible confrontation. He should deny everything, should use his powers to cloud her mind, should walk away and never return. Instead, he hears himself say, "Perhaps we should continue this conversation somewhere more private." Evelyn shakes her head. "No, whatever you have to say, you can say it here, in public, where—" She stops, swallowing hard. "Where it's safe." She thinks she needs protection from him. The realization stings more than it should. "Your grandmother's name was Eleanor," Graham says quietly. "She wore her hair in a braid that reached her waist. She had a scar on her left palm from a childhood accident with a kitchen knife." Evelyn's eyes widen. "How could you possibly?" "Because I knew her mother. And her mother's mother." Graham holds her gaze. "Your family and mine have a connection that spans generations." "That's impossible. You can't be more than 40. A bitter smile touches his lips. "I'm considerably older than I appear." Before Evelyn can respond, a commotion erupts near the refreshment table. A man has collapsed, clutching his chest. People gather around, voices rising in alarm. Graham recognizes the man, one of Elias's subordinates playing a part. "Mom!" Mara's voice cuts through the chaos. "Mom, where are you?" Evelyn turns immediately toward her daughter's call, maternal instinct overriding all else. Graham sees what she doesn't. Elias moving smoothly through the distracted crowd toward Mara, purpose in every step. Graham moves faster than human eyes can track, cutting through the room like a shadow. He reaches Mara seconds before Elias, positioning himself between the child and the approaching vampire. "Not here," Graham warns, voice too low for human ears. "Not her." Elias stops, hands spread in mock innocence. "I merely wanted to introduce myself to the child, who has so captivated my king." "Back away." "Or what? You'll reveal what we are? Create a scene?" Elias's smile is all teeth. "I wonder what Miss Brooks would think if she knew the truth about her family's connection to yours, about London, about what really happened to her ancestor." The air between them crackles with ancient power. Around them, humans sense something, a pressure drop, a static charge, though they can't identify its source. "Mom!" Mara calls again, her voice closer. Graham makes a decision. "Tomorrow, midnight, the old cathedral. We'll settle this away from mortal eyes." "A challenge?" Elias's eyes gleam with anticipation. How delightfully archaic. "A reckoning," Graham corrects. "Now leave before I forget we have an audience." For a moment, Elias seems poised to refuse. Then, with deliberate slowness, he inclines his head in mock deference. "Until tomorrow, Your Majesty." He withdraws just as Evelyn pushes through the crowd, reaching for Mara with visible relief. "There you are. Don't wander off like that, especially with all this commotion." Her eyes meet Graham's over Mara's head, questions and accusations mingling in her gaze. "Our conversation isn't finished, Mr. Calder." "No," Graham agrees softly. "But it must wait for another time." As he turns to leave, Mara catches his sleeve. "Are you the one who sent the music box?" she asks, her small face earnest. "It plays the same song my dad used to hum." The simple question lands like a physical blow. Graham kneels to her level, aware of Evelyn's protective tension. "Yes," he admits. "I thought you might like it." "I do." Mara smiles, revealing a missing front tooth. "It helps me remember him." Graham feels something crack inside his chest, a fissure in ice that has encased his heart for centuries. "I'm glad." Rising, he meets Evelyn's gaze once more. "Keep her close tonight," he says, pitching his voice too low for Mara to hear. "Don't answer your door no matter who knocks." Fear flashes across Evelyn's face. "Are we in danger?" "Not if I can help it." Graham steps back, already calculating what must be done. "I'll explain everything tomorrow, I promise." As he strides toward the exit, Tobias falls into step beside him. The council won't approve of a direct challenge to Lord Keaton. The council isn't here. Graham pushes through the doors into the cool night air. "Gather our allies. I want guards on the Brooks apartment tonight. Discreet, but lethal if necessary." "And tomorrow?" Graham looks up at the star-scattered sky, at the waning moon that has witnessed centuries of his existence. "Tomorrow I end a threat that has persisted far too long." They're halfway to the waiting car when the sound reaches them, a high, terrified scream from inside the community center, followed by shouts of alarm. Graham whirls, every sense suddenly alert. Through the glass doors, he sees chaos erupting, people running, a table overturned. And at the center of it all, Elias Keaton, his hand wrapped around Mara's small wrist, dragging her toward a side exit, while Evelyn lies crumpled on the floor nearby. "No," Graham breathes, the single syllable containing centuries of rage. He moves toward the doors, power gathering around him like a storm. A deafening explosion rocks the night, shattering the community center's windows in a burst of flame and smoke. The force throws Graham backward, momentarily disorienting even his immortal senses. Through ringing ears, he hears screams, smells blood and burning fabric, tastes ash on the air. And somewhere in the inferno, a child's terrified voice calls for her mother. Graham lunges toward the blazing community center, his preternatural speed carrying him through the shattered doorway before the glass has even settled on the ground. Heat assaults him, a wall of it, scorching even to his immortal flesh. Smoke billows in thick clouds, obscuring his vision, but he doesn't need to see. He can smell Mara's fear, taste Evelyn's blood in the air. "Mara," he roars, the sound cutting through the cacophony of screams and crackling flames. He finds them near the kitchen, Elias dragging a struggling Mara toward the rear exit, while two of his followers block the path of rescuers. Evelyn is on her feet now, blood streaming from a gash on her forehead, desperately trying to reach her daughter through the chaos. Graham doesn't hesitate. He tears through the room, tossing aside burning debris, his focus narrowed to a singular purpose. When one of Elias's men steps into his path, Graham doesn't slow. He simply drives his fist through the vampire's chest, ripping out his heart in one fluid motion. The body crumples as Graham steps over it. "Keaton!" The name explodes from him like a curse. Elias turns, his face a mask of calculated malice. He yanks Mara in front of him, using her as a shield. "Your weakness made flesh, Calder. How convenient. Let her go. This is between us. Everything is between us." Elias's fingers tighten around Mara's throat. 3 centuries of your sanctimonious rule. 3 centuries of pretending we aren't what we are. Predators. Graham takes a measured step forward. The building groans around them, support beams weakening in the fire. "You have 10 seconds to release her." "Or what? You'll kill me. With all these witnesses." Elias gestures to the panicking humans still struggling to escape. "Your precious masquerade would be shattered." A ceiling beam crashes down nearby, sending up a shower of sparks. Through the smoke, Graham catches Evelyn's eye. Her face is streaked with blood and soot, but her gaze is steady, trusting. It's a look no human has given him in centuries. 9 seconds, Graham says, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. Elias backs toward the exit, dragging Mara with him. "I'm taking her. A lesson in consequences, Calder. When you're ready to abdicate your throne, perhaps I'll return what's left of her." The building shudders again. They have minutes before the entire structure collapses. 3 seconds, Graham says, and there's something in his voice that makes even Elias pause. A resonance of power that hasn't been heard since the Dark Ages, when Graham carved his kingdom from the chaos of warring clans. Elias's smile falters. "You wouldn't dare. Not here. Not now." 1, Graham says, and moves. What happens next unfolds too quickly for human eyes to follow. Graham seems to blur, becoming something less solid than flesh, more elemental than man. He flows around Mara without touching her, materializing behind Elias with his hand already closing around the younger vampire's throat. "I warned you," Graham whispers into Elias's ear as he lifts him from the ground. Elias claws at Graham's arm, his feet kicking uselessly in the air. "The council." We'll understand. Graham tightens his grip. Some lines cannot be crossed. With his free hand, Graham reaches into Elias's chest, fingers sinking through skin and bone as if they were water. Elias's body convulses, a scream tearing from his throat as Graham's hand closes around his heart. Not to remove it, but to squeeze. Feel that? Graham asks, his voice terrifyingly gentle. That's restraint breaking. That's 300 years of control. Slipping. He releases Elias, who collapses to the floor, gasping. In the same moment, Graham scoops Mara into his arms and crosses to Evelyn's side. Take her, he says, passing the trembling child to her mother. Get out now. The north exit is still clear. Evelyn clutches Mara to her chest. What about you? I'll be right behind you. The lie comes easily, practiced over centuries. Go. As they flee, Graham turns back to Elias, who has staggered to his feet, hatred burning in his eyes. You've chosen them over your own kind, Elias spits. You've chosen cattle over kings. No. Graham shakes his head. I've chosen humanity over monsters, including the monster in myself. The building gives another ominous groan. Flames lick up the walls, consuming everything in their path. Graham can hear the approaching sirens, the shouts of firefighters preparing to enter. This ends tonight, Graham says. All of it. Elias laughs, a sound like breaking glass. You can't kill me here. Too many questions, too many witnesses. I don't need to kill you. Graham steps closer, his eyes reflecting the surrounding flames. I just need to keep you here long enough. Understanding dawns on Elias's face. You wouldn't. Not even you would sacrifice. Graham moves with blinding speed, grabbing Elias and hurling them both through the wall of flames that now blocks the main exit. They crash through burning debris, rolling across the floor of what was once the community center's main hall. The ceiling above them is a map of fire, support beams cracking under the strain. Elias struggles to his feet, his clothing smoldering. You're insane. This fire can't kill us, but it can trap us. If the building collapses, we'll be buried, Graham finishes for him. Not dead, but entombed. How long do you think it would take to dig out from under tons of concrete and steel? Decades, centuries, and that's assuming no one rebuilds on top of us. Fear flashes across Elias's face. Real fear, perhaps for the first time in his immortal existence. He lunges for the nearest exit, but Graham intercepts him, throwing him back toward the center of the burning room. The others will come for me, Elias snarls, circling warily. Your followers scattered the moment the explosion hit. Self-preservation is the vampire's first instinct, isn't it? Except when something matters more. Graham's eyes flick toward the exit where Evelyn and Mara had escaped. Elias charges, his face contorted with rage. The two vampires collide with bone-shattering force, grappling amid the flames. They are evenly matched in strength, but Graham fights with a cold precision that Elias can't match. Each blow is calculated, each movement efficient. You've grown soft, Elias gasps as Graham pins him against a burning wall. Centuries of playing human have weakened you. No, Graham says, driving his fist into Elias's sternum. They've reminded me of something you've forgotten. What's that? Elias wheezes, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. That power isn't everything. A tremendous crack sounds above them as a main support beam gives way. Graham looks up just in time to see the ceiling beginning to collapse. He releases Elias and dives clear as tons of burning debris crash down, burying the younger vampire beneath it. Graham staggers to his feet, surveying the destruction. Through the settling dust, he can see Elias's arm protruding from the rubble, fingers twitching. Not dead, vampires are notoriously difficult to kill, but trapped, possibly for decades. The building won't stand much longer. Graham can feel it shuddering beneath his feet, hear the groans of metal and concrete preparing to fail. He should leave now, while there's still time. Instead, he walks to the pile of debris that entombs Elias and kneels beside it. "I could have been like you," he says softly. "I was once. But then I remembered what it was to care for something beyond power and blood." Elias's fingers claw at the air. His voice, muffled by the wreckage, is barely audible. They'll die anyway. In a blink. What are human lives but moments? "Beautiful ones," Graham answers, rising to his feet. He makes his way toward the exit, each step measured against the building's death throes. The smoke is thick now, the heat intense enough that even his immortal flesh blisters and heals in an endless cycle of pain. Outside, chaos reigns. Fire trucks and ambulances crowd the street, their lights painting the night in strobes of red and blue. Paramedics tend to the injured while firefighters battle the blaze. And there, beyond the police cordon, stand Evelyn and Mara, clinging to each other as they watch their community center burn. Graham approaches them slowly, aware of how he must look. Clothes singed, skin smudged with soot, eyes reflecting the flames behind him. Evelyn sees him first, her body tensing as if preparing to shield Mara. Then recognition dawns, and she relaxes, relief washing over her features. "You made it," she breathes as he reaches them. "I told you I would." Another lie, but a kind one. Mara breaks free from her mother's embrace and throws her arms around Graham's waist. "You saved me," she says, her voice muffled against his shirt. Graham hesitates, then gently places a hand on her head. The gesture feels foreign, yet somehow right. "You're safe now," he says. "Both of you." Evelyn steps closer, her eyes searching his face. "What happened in there? That man won't trouble you again," Graham says firmly. "But this isn't over. Not yet." A commotion draws their attention. Tobias has arrived with several of Graham's security team, their presence commanding despite their efforts to blend in. Tobias's expression is grim as he approaches. "My lord," he says quietly, "we need to leave. The council has been informed of tonight's events." Graham nods. "Take Evelyn and Mara somewhere safe. The brownstone on Marlowe Street. And you?" "I have business to attend to." Evelyn grabs his arm. "Graham, what's happening? Who are these people?" He covers her hand with his own. "Trust me, Evelyn. Just for tonight. Tomorrow, I promise you'll have all the answers." She studies him for a long moment, then nods. "Tomorrow, then." As Tobias escorts Evelyn and Mara to a waiting car, Graham turns to face the burning building one last time. Through the flames, he can sense Elias's presence. Weakened, but still alive. Still dangerous. It won't hold him forever. "Sir." Porter Hale materializes at his side. "The council representatives will be here by dawn. They're demanding explanations." "They'll have them," Graham says. "But first I need you to gather everyone. Every elder, every lieutenant. The old chamber beneath the cathedral." Porter's eyes widen. "The blood chamber? But that hasn't been used since the last succession." "I know." Graham's gaze remains fixed on the fire. "It's time, Porter. Time for change." The ancient cathedral stands empty at this hour, its stone walls holding centuries of prayers and confessions. Graham descends the hidden staircase behind the altar, each step taking him deeper into the earth, into a past he has tried to leave behind. The chamber below is already filled with his kind, 30 or more vampires of varying ages and powers, all bound to him by blood oath or political alliance. They fall silent as he enters, their faces pale in the light of hundreds of candles. At the center of the room stands a stone basin, its surface carved with symbols older than Christianity itself. Graham approaches it slowly, feeling the weight of every eye upon him. "You know why I've called you here," he says, his voice echoing in the vaulted space. "Tonight, Elias Keaton violated our most sacred law. He attempted to take a human child as leverage against me." Murmurs ripple through the assembly. Graham raises a hand for silence. "Some of you may believe his actions were justified, that my attachment to these humans represents weakness." His gaze sweeps the room, challenging anyone to speak. None do. "What you fail to understand is that our survival has always depended on our ability to live alongside humanity, not merely prey upon it." He rolls up his sleeve, exposing the pale flesh of his forearm. "For 3 centuries, I have led our kind through wars, through witch hunts, through technological revolutions that threaten to expose us. I have maintained our secrecy, our safety, our prosperity." With a single sharp nail, Graham slices open his wrist. Dark blood wells up, thicker than human blood, almost black in the candlelight. He holds his arm over the basin, allowing the blood to drip into it. Tonight, that leadership ends. The room erupts in shocked exclamations. Tobias steps forward, alarm written across his features. "My lord, you can't mean—" "I do." Graham's voice cuts through the chaos. "I am dissolving the blood oath. All of you will be released from your fealty to me." "This is madness," one of the elders hisses. "Without the hierarchy, without the oath binding us, there will be chaos. War between the clans." "Perhaps," Graham acknowledges. "Or perhaps you will find a better way forward, one that doesn't require absolute power concentrated in a single hand." He turns to Tobias. "You will oversee the transition. The council will attempt to appoint a new king. Don't let them." Tobias shakes his head, disbelief etched into every line of his face. "What you're proposing has never been done. The power vacuum will be filled," Graham says firmly. "But not by another monarch. It's time our kind learned to govern themselves." He returns his attention to the basin, where his blood has begun to form patterns across the ancient stone, living symbols that pulse with power. The ritual has begun. There is no turning back now. "By the power vested in me as king," Graham intones, his voice resonating with supernatural authority, "I release you all from your oaths of fealty. The bonds are broken, the hierarchy dissolved." With each word, the blood in the basin glows brighter, until it illuminates the chamber with a pulsing crimson light. Graham feels the connections snapping, thousands of invisible threads that have bound his followers to him for centuries, now severing one by one. And with each broken bond, he feels his own power diminishing. The ritual doesn't just release his subjects, it strips him of the accumulated power of their fealty, leaving him with only his original strength, the power he was born with as a vampire. When the last bond breaks, the light in the basin flares blindingly bright, then extinguishes itself. Graham staggers, suddenly weak in a way he hasn't experienced since his mortal days. He grips the edge of the basin to steady himself. The vampires around him look equally shaken, as if they too are adjusting to a fundamental change in their nature. Some appear frightened, others exhilarated by their newfound independence. "It is done," Graham says, his voice now just a voice, powerful still, but no longer carrying the weight of supernatural command. "You are free." The chamber empties slowly, vampires departing in twos and threes, whispering among themselves about what this means for their future. Only Tobias and Porter remain behind, their loyalty apparently transcending the broken oath. "What now?" Tobias asks quietly. Graham straightens, releasing the basin. "Now I finish what I started." Dawn is approaching as Graham arrives at the brownstone on Marlow Street. The sky has lightened to a deep blue, the stars fading one by one. Soon the sun will rise, and for the first time in centuries, Graham feels a tremor of apprehension at the thought. Evelyn opens the door before he can knock. She's still wearing the clothes from the night before, stained with smoke and blood, but she's washed her face and tended to the cut on her forehead. "Mara's asleep," she says, stepping aside to let him enter. Finally. The brownstone's interior is elegant but sparse, one of many properties Graham maintains throughout the city but rarely visits. Evelyn leads him to a sitting room where a fire burns low in the grate, casting long shadows across the antique furniture. "Your people wouldn't tell me anything," she says, sitting on the edge of a leather armchair. "Just that we were safe here." They were following orders. Graham remains standing, suddenly uncertain how to begin. After centuries of secrets, the truth feels foreign on his tongue. Evelyn watches him, her patience a tangible thing between them. "Whatever it is," she says finally, "it can't be worse than what I'm imagining." Graham meets her gaze. "Can't it?" He begins slowly, choosing his words with care. He tells her what he is. A vampire, yes, but more than that. A king among vampires. A ruler who has maintained order among his kind for 3 centuries. He explains about Elias, about the challenge to his authority, about the danger that still threatens them. Throughout it all, Evelyn listens without interruption, her expression shifting from disbelief to fear to something more complex. A kind of wary acceptance that Graham has seen only rarely in humans confronted with the supernatural. When he finishes, silence stretches between them, broken only by the occasional pop from the fireplace. "Show me," Evelyn says finally. Graham hesitates. "Are you sure?" She nods, her jaw set in determination. "If I'm going to believe this, if I'm going to trust you with my daughter's safety, I need to see." Slowly, Graham lets his human disguise slip away. His eyes change first, the pupils expanding until they swallow the iris entirely, turning his gaze into bottomless pools of darkness. Then his teeth, not the ridiculous fangs of fiction, but sharper, more numerous, designed for tearing flesh rather than merely puncturing it. Finally, his skin pales further, taking on the translucent quality that marks the truly ancient among his kind. Evelyn's breath catches, but she doesn't look away. Her heart rate accelerates. Graham can hear it, a rapid drumming that calls to the predator in him. But she holds her ground. "Change back," she whispers. "Please." He does, letting humanity settle over him like a familiar coat. "That's what I am," he says quietly. "What I've always been." Evelyn stands and walks to the window, pulling back the heavy curtain to peer at the lightening sky. "And the sun? Will it kill me?" "Not immediately. But yes, eventually." He joins her at the window, careful to maintain distance between them. "My kind can tolerate brief exposure, especially the older ones like me, but prolonged contact with sunlight is fatal." She turns to face him. "Why are you telling me all this now? After hiding it for so long? Because you deserve the truth. And because after tonight, things will change. He glances toward the staircase where Mara sleeps above. Elias is temporarily contained, but he won't remain so. And there are others who will see my actions tonight as weakness, as an opportunity. What actions? I've abdicated my position, dissolved the power structure that has governed vampire society for centuries. He smiles faintly at her bewildered expression. It's complicated politics, but the result is simple. I am no longer king. Just a very old vampire with a lot of enemies. Understanding dawns in Evelyn's eyes. And these enemies, they'll come for you. Yes, and for anyone associated with me. The implication hangs in the air between them. Mara, Evelyn breathes. That's why you're telling me, so we can run. Graham shakes his head. Running won't help. They would find you eventually. Then what? What do we do? I end it. Graham turns back to the window. The sky has lightened further, pink and gold beginning to streak the eastern horizon. There's an old ritual, older than me, older than any living vampire, a blood oath of protection. Evelyn's brow furrows. What does that mean? It means I can ensure your safety, yours and Mara's, permanently. No vampire would be able to harm you, ever. He pauses. But the ritual requires sacrifice. What kind of sacrifice? Graham meets her gaze steadily. My immortality. The words hang in the air between them, weighty with implication. Evelyn stares at him, trying to process what he's saying. You would die? For us? Not immediately, Graham clarifies. But I would become mortal, vulnerable. I would age and die like any human. Why? Evelyn steps closer, searching his face. Why would you do that for people you barely know? Graham considers the question, trying to articulate something he himself doesn't fully understand. Because in 300 years, I've never met anyone who made me remember what it felt like to be human. Until you. The confession costs him. Centuries of carefully maintained distance crumbling in an instant. Evelyn's expression softens, her hand rising to touch his face with a gentleness that makes him ache. There has to be another way, she says. There isn't. Graham covers her hand with his own, then gently removes it. The ritual must be completed before sunset. After that, the council will arrive, and my enemies will make their move. A sound from the doorway makes them both turn. Mara stands there in borrowed pajamas too large for her small frame, her eyes wide and solemn. You're leaving, she says to Graham, not a question but a statement of fact. Graham kneels to her level. Yes, but first, I'm going to make sure that you and your mother are safe. Mara approaches him without fear, studying his face with that uncanny perception that had unsettled him from their first meeting. You're different, she says, not like before. Yes, Graham acknowledges. I am. She reaches out and takes his hand, her small fingers wrapping around his with complete trust. Will it hurt? The thing you have to do? Graham glances up at Evelyn, who looks as startled by her daughter's intuition as he feels. Yes, he tells Mara honestly, but it's worth it. The ritual is simpler than Graham had expected. No ancient chamber, no elaborate preparations, just the three of them in the brownstone's small garden as the sun rises over the city. Graham has prepared a small silver bowl, an ornate dagger, and a vial of clear liquid that catches the light like liquid diamond. This is distilled water from a natural spring, he explains to Evelyn and Mara, who watch with solemn faces. Water that has never seen darkness, collected at the moment of sunrise. He uncorks the vial and pours the water into the bowl, where it catches the morning light, refracting it in dazzling patterns. Next, he takes the dagger and, without hesitation, draws it across his palm. Dark blood wells up, dripping into the bowl, where it doesn't mix with the water but forms intricate patterns on its surface. Blood freely given, Graham murmurs, for protection freely offered. He extends his bleeding hand to Evelyn. A drop of your blood, and Mara's. Just a small prick. Evelyn hesitates, then nods. She takes the dagger and, with a quick motion, pricks her finger, allowing a single drop of blood to fall into the bowl. Then, with gentle hands, she does the same for Mara, who watches the process with wide, serious eyes. As their blood touches the surface of the water, the patterns shift, Graham's dark blood intertwining with their brighter droplets, forming symbols that seem to move with a life of their own. By my blood and yours, Graham intones, I bind this oath. No creature of night shall harm you. No shadow shall touch your lives. This I swear, with my immortality as the price. The liquid in the bowl begins to glow, a soft radiance that intensifies with each word. Graham feels the change beginning, a warmth spreading through his body, a heaviness in his limbs that he hasn't felt in centuries. His heart, which has beaten only sluggishly for 300 years, quickens its pace. It's working, he whispers, wonder in his voice. The glow from the bowl flares suddenly, bright enough to make Evelyn shield her eyes. When it fades, the liquid has vanished, leaving the bowl empty and dry. Graham staggers slightly, one hand bracing against the garden wall. The world around him seems sharper somehow, more immediate. He can still hear Evelyn's heartbeat, still smell the complex layers of scent that make up the morning air, but his own body feels different, heavier, warmer, more vulnerable. Graham? Evelyn steps forward, concern etched on her features. Are you all right? He straightens, taking a deep breath of morning air. The sun, now fully risen, touches his skin with warmth rather than the beginning burn he's accustomed to. Yes, he says, surprised to find it true. I'm all right. Mara approaches, studying him with that penetrating gaze. You're like us now, she says. Graham smiles, a genuine expression that transforms his face. Not exactly, but closer than I've been in a very long time. They return inside, where Graham explains what happens next. The protection spell will shield them from any vampire who might seek to harm them, but they should still leave the city, start fresh somewhere new, somewhere without memories of community centers in flames or mysterious strangers with too many secrets. What about you? Evelyn asks as they stand in the brownstone's entryway. Will we see you again? Graham hesitates. It would be safer if you didn't. That's not what I asked. He meets her gaze, seeing in it a strength that matches his own. I don't know. I have arrangements to make, a life to dismantle, and enemies who will still want me dead. Ritual or no ritual. Mara tugs at his hand, drawing his attention downward. You should come with us, she says simply, as if it's the most obvious solution in the world. Graham kneels beside her. I can't, little one. Not yet. Maybe not ever. She frowns, clearly dissatisfied with his answer. But you're alone now. The observation strikes him with unexpected force. She's right, of course. For the first time in centuries, he is truly alone. No followers bound by blood oath, no network of supernatural allies. Just Graham Calder, newly mortal, with nothing but time stretching before him. Time that now has a limit. Yes, he acknowledges. I am. Evelyn's hand comes to rest on his shoulder. It doesn't have to be that way. He looks up at her, seeing the offer in her eyes. Not romance, not yet, but possibility. A door left open. Give us time, she says. A few months to settle somewhere new. Then, if you want. She leaves the sentence unfinished, the invitation hanging in the air between them. Graham rises to his feet, feeling the new weight of his body, the strange sensation of blood pumping steadily through his veins. I'll find you, he promises. Outside, a car waits to take Evelyn and Mara to the airport, their few belongings already packed and loaded. Graham watches from the doorway as they climb in, Mara turning to wave one last time before the car pulls away. As it disappears around the corner, Graham tilts his face up to the sun, feeling its warmth on his skin without the accompanying burn that has been his constant companion for centuries. The sensation is both foreign and achingly familiar, a memory from a human life long forgotten, now returned to him. For the first time in 300 years, Graham Calder stands in full daylight, his shadow stretching long behind him, and breathes in the scent of possibility.